Hello and welcome to another episode of the Adobe Creative Suite podcast. My name is Terry White, and in this episode we're going to take a look at, I hope to show you, how to get started with Adobe Muse, the 10 things beginners want to know how to do. But before we get into it, let's talk about what Adobe Muse is and what it isn't. Adobe Muse is Adobe's new web design tool for designers. Adobe already has a web design tool for developers and coders and professional web designers, people that do this for a living. It's called Dreamweaver. The two products are aimed at two different markets. If you say, hey, I want to tweak the code, or hey, I want to see the code, or hey, I want to do something with code, then chances are you're more of a Dreamweaver customer. If you say, hey, I don't know about code, or maybe I know a little about code, and I really just want to concentrate on the design of my website and not have to write any code, then you're most likely a Muse customer. So they're aimed at two different markets. They don't really talk to each other. They don't really do anything with each other. You can go into Dreamweaver and write custom code and bring that code into Muse if that's what you want to do, but then the question would be why? Because if you already know how to do that, you would just stick with Dreamweaver. So now that we know who the product is aimed at, let's talk about how to get started. So let's pretend you've never used Muse before. Let's pretend you're new to web design and you really don't know much about coding. And let's jump right in. So I've launched Muse, and this is where most of you will start. You wouldn't have a list of recent files. You would basically just have the create new site. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on it. And while you can go in and customize any of these settings, this is one of those times where the defaults are pretty good. There's really not a whole lot you need to change here, if anything, especially if you're just starting out. You do have the option now of starting out with a desktop layout, a tablet, or smartphone layout, but we're going to stick to desktop for now. We're just going to accept the defaults and click OK. Now, the first thing that people want to know how to do, besides creating the new site, is how to add pages, what are master pages, what are headers and footers. So it's kind of like a group of things that I'll call number one. So when you start off the new site, you're in the planning stage of the site. And in the planning stage, you have masters and pages. You can have multiple masters, but it gives you one by default. And of course, you will more than likely have multiple web pages. If you're an InDesign user, Muse is very much like InDesign. As a matter of fact, you can think of this whole plan stage as the InDesign pages panel, where you have your masters and your pages, in this case, web pages. So what do you do with the master? Well, when you double click on the master, let me point out some elements. You have the browser fill, that's this dark gray area. You have the page that you're designing on. You have the top of the page, the header, the footer, and the bottom of the page. And these can all be slid around and designed. So what's the top of the page? Anything you want to put here that's going to be static that doesn't interfere with your content. What do you put in the header? Things that you want above your content. What do you put in the footer? Everything you put down here will basically be at the bottom of your content no matter what. So if you have a really short page, you'll see the bottom. If you have a really long page, you have to scroll to see the footer information. So footers are footers. And then of course you have, if I zoom out a little bit, you have the bottom of the page, which again, just like the top of the page or top of the browser fill, you can add whatever stuff you want to be down there that's static. So, do I have to have this white page all the time? Well, the answer is no. It gives you this white rectangle by default to design all your content, but you could say, you know what? I want it to either be a different color or no color whatsoever, and I don't want a box around it either. So now you just have this blue guide that shows you where your page is, and of course you still have your top of page, header, footer, and bottom of page to deal with. But you can now design whatever you want, and it will just basically be on top of your browser fill. Your browser fill can be whatever color you want. It can also be an image. So if you say, hey, I want to fill this with an image, you can then just go say find an image, for example, and you can say that I want that image not to be tiled. I don't want it to repeat. I just want it to scale to fill, and I want to do it from the center. So now that will be the background for all of the pages we build or in Muse with that master, because again, you can have multiple masters. So I could say, hey, I want that to be kind of some of my pages, and I want that to be some of my other pages. Now, how do we make more pages? Plus sign. So let's say we want an About Us page. We want a Contact Us page. We want a Products page. And we want an Events page. And again, you can add as many of these as you want for whatever your needs are going to be. And maybe I want my About Us page to have that master. That one's going to have that master. That one's going to have that master. And maybe the events will stay with the original master. So that's what the master pages are for, designing your different pages and keeping them consistent. Now that we've got these different pages, let's talk about the number 2 thing that people want to know how to do. And actually, I'm gonna count this before we even get to number 2. I'm gonna still count this as number 1. So we've added the pages, and of course, now you're going to want the ability to navigate between those pages. So let's say we go here and we want to add navigation to our site. Well, in Muse, we have these widgets in the widget library. So you have character styles, paragraph styles, text wrapping, graphic styles, and widgets. So if we go to our widgets area, in the menus, we have both horizontal and vertical. So if I grab a vertical menu, that will give me a navigation menu for my site. Notice it's already picked up all my other pages, and I can style these any way I want. So when I say that, the Muse will often default to like a plain common denominator, light gray background, white serif type. But don't think you're limited to that. You can change this to anything you want. You want a different font? Drill down on it and change the font. And now your font for your menus change. You want your menu to be a little smaller? Change the point size. You want it to have a different color background? Change the background to a different color. And, ooh, not that color though. Maybe that color. And so now you've got a design of a menu that you've done custom to your heart's content. And you can, of course, control the rollover states and all that as well. Okay, so if we close that master has put the menu on the home page and the events page, but we didn't do a menu for master B. So let's go to master page B. We can drop down the header here. We can say that we want a horizontal menu in this case, again, knowing that we can design this menu any way we want it to look, and away we go. Now, the next thing, and this is number 2, placing text and images. So Muse can place the standard web formats. So JPEG, PNG, PNG, GIF, GIF, and Flash files, SWIFT files that are animated. If you're looking to do HTML5 animations with our Adobe Edge product, it can place that content as well. So now that you know the types of files you can place, there's one more that you can place that is uncommon to most web tools, and that is PSD files. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But let's talk about placing, first of all, our logo that we want to be on all the pages. So let's go to the first master. We're going to go to File and Place, and we're going to go find the logo, and again, it's a PNG file. We'll just go ahead and place it, and we'll place this wherever we want it to be. Okay, great. Now that will be on those 2 pages that use it. Now we need to place it here as well. So File, Place, and there it is. So now it will be on all the pages that use this master. And I'm going to need to bring that down a bit more. There we go. All right, beautiful. All right, so now we've placed a graphic on our master page. Now let's talk about placing graphics on, or other types of graphics on other pages. First of all, let's go to the home page, and let's say that we want to place, we know we can place PNG, we know we can place GIF and JPEG, just like I placed the logo. But let's talk about 2 other types of files we're going to place. The first one we're going to place is an edge animation. So we're going to do File, Place, and it is the file type of OAM. This is an edge animation file that came out of our Adobe Edge animation tool. Now when I place that, it basically just gives me the ability to place it, and I see the area of the animation that's going to take up. We'll see what that animation actually does in a moment. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to our site. We're going to go to the About Us page, and we're going to place a different type of graphic. File, place. We're going to go grab the Photoshop native file and place it on the page. All right, now let's talk about the advantage of doing this versus a JPEG, PNG, or GIF. Well, as a Photoshop file, that means it can have layers, and that means I can round trip it to Photoshop to continue making changes. So let's say, for example, I want a different version of this file on my website, and I want the customer to tell me if they like it better. I can right-click on this and say Edit Original. That will open it in Photoshop to where I can do any Photoshop things to it now. For example, I can add another layer. We'll duplicate the layer here. We'll go in and we'll make some changes to it using the patch tool. So I've got the patch tool here. We'll just make a selection and we'll patch the white paint or bird droppings, whatever those are, off the walls here. So just using the patch tool to get rid of this stuff that's kind of distracting me from our model. Okay, great. So now I've got the layer with those things gone, and I've got the original layer with them there. So I can just simply save this, close it, switch back to Muse, and Muse will update. They're gone. So it's done that for me, and that's the advantage of using a PSD. Now, of course, when we upload this to our site or a server, PSDs don't work. We can't have PSDs on the web. So Muse will automatically, in the background, convert that to a JPEG upon export and optimize it for the size and the page. So that means that we can start out with perhaps a bigger PSD. And, oops, didn't want to crop. Want it to scale. We'll just scale it down. And there we are. Now we can crop, by the way, by holding down our Command key on the Mac, Control key on Windows. That's kind of a bonus tip there. So now we have the optimized, or will be the optimized version of that PSD. And if we ever want to go back, we can right click on this, edit original, turn off that layer, save it, come back, and it will be updated in Muse. So I'm not going to save it this time. We'll go back to Muse, and there it is. So that's placing images as Photoshop file. We have one more type of image to place, and that is going to be File, Place Photoshop as Button. Now, there's two types of place. There's place for all your other content. Your SWIFTs, your edge animations, your JPEGs, your GIFs, your Photoshop files, your PNGs. But when you say place this Photoshop button, you're placing a specific, you're placing a Photoshop file in a specific way. What you're saying here is that I want you to open it up and look at the layers, and I want to use those layers as rollover states. So I want to have the normal state be the up layer of that file and the rollover state be the over layer of that file. So now when I click and place, I can put that wherever I want it to be. And maybe we'll move the edge animation up, and we'll put the Facebook logo here. And we'll also place the Twitter logo as a Photoshop button, Twitter. So this is a Photoshop file that contains two layers. One is an up layer and one is an over layer. All right, so now if we were to preview this, we can preview it directly in Muse. And when we preview this page, we'll see our edge animation. There it is. And we'll also be able to preview the rollovers of our buttons. Great, works fantastically. So next, and this will be number 3, how do we hyperlink? And actually I skipped over one thing in number 2, adding text. So let's do both of those now. So finishing up number 2, adding text. Well, we add text with the type tool. And we can say, maybe we want to move the animation out of the way here. There we go. And we're going to say that we want to add some text right here. We just drag out a text frame, just like we do in InDesign. And we're just going to start typing. Welcome. The Pluralist team welcomes you to our new website. Okay, so at this point, think Adobe Design Tools. Don't think web. So if I wanted to highlight this and make this bigger, I just make it bigger. If I want to center it, I center it. If I want to change it to a different font, I change it to a different font with a caveat. So let's go to fonts. You have three areas of fonts inside Muse. Let's start with WebSafe. There are the 11 WebSafe fonts that work on everything, but they're quite boring. You have Arial, Comic Sans, Courier New, Geneva, Georgia, Helvetica, so forth and so on. The reason they're called WebSafe is because they're built into all the modern browsers. They're built into all the mobile phones and tablets. So if you use one of those fonts, it will work, no question, and it will be text. But then you have your hundreds, if not thousands, of fonts you have installed on your system. All of these system fonts can also be used in Muse, but it will convert whatever you use these on as an image, which you typically don't want to do a lot of. It will make your site heavier and slower to load. So only use your system fonts sparingly, perhaps on a logo, or perhaps on one headline, or perhaps on one thing where you actually need it to be the font, but know that it's going to be a graphic. And last but not least, we have web fonts. These are the 400 plus Typekit fonts that come with Muse that allow you to really design your type as real type. So let's go and add fonts. This will bring up the Typekit add web fonts dialog. You can search by name. You can search by the type of font. So sans serifs only, slab serifs, scripts. So very cool to be able to do this. So let's say, for example, I want, I don't know, let's do Satisfy. So I click on Satisfy, I click OK, it adds Satisfy to my menu. Now I can use Satisfy anywhere I want. And it will then, of course, let me make it bigger. I'm doing this from the keyboard. I just instinctively knew I could do that because it works just like InDesign with Command-Shift+ and Command-Shift-. I can make this whatever color I want. So if I need this to be a specific color, I can make it that color. I can do whatever I want to do to that type. And more importantly, just like InDesign, Illustrator, and Photoshop, I have paragraph styles. So I can say, make that a style sheet called headline or heading that I can use over and over again on all my pages. And if I come back to heading and make a change, it will update my entire site. So type is type. Now let's talk about the links. Let's go to number 3, hyperlinks. So let's make these buttons actually do something. I want the first button to go to my Facebook page, so we go to add or filter links. When we type in the URL or paste it in, facebook.com/TerryWhiteFans, and hit return or enter, that link has now been applied to that button. We do the same thing for the Twitter button, http://twitter.com/TerryLWhite. And now that Twitter button will be linked to something. You can also do it to text. So I can highlight the word team and I can say that I want to add a link there. I can even use one of my recently used ones, or I can say that this one is going to go to my website. Okay, and now that will be a hyperlink for that word. So whether it's text or graphics, just click on it or highlight it and then add your link using the links option on the control panel or toolbar. So that was number 3. Let's talk about number 4. Let's go to the About Us page. Actually, let's go to a different page since we already put something on that one. Let's go to our products page. Yeah, let's go there. And let's say we want to put on a slideshow on this page. We go back to our widget library, same place we got the menus from. And in the widget library, we have slideshows. Now you have 4 different ones to start with, but they're all really the same one with different options turned on and off. I like to start with a blank one because it's blank. That means I don't have to worry about taking the existing content or sample content out of it. And I can still turn on Lightbox or thumbnails or whatever else I want to do. So I'm going to say add images, and I will now go find my images there. And I can select them all here and open, and it will add all 15 of those slides directly in. Now, once those 15 slides are in, I can use any of the other options here to control what it looks like. So for example, I didn't start with the thumbnails slideshow, but if I want thumbnails, I can click add thumbnails, and there they are. If I wanted the lightbox option, I can click and add the lightbox option that will dim the rest of the page when the slideshow is playing. I can either have it manually advance or auto play. I can use different transitions that I want. I can basically do whatever I want to do to edit the way this slideshow looks and behaves. So for example, I don't want captions and I don't want a counter. I can turn those off. Now at this point, you can pick up the slideshow, you can move it around, you can copy and paste it between different pages. It knows what to do. You can even go in and take the buttons, for example, and put them wherever else you want them to be. So I want that button to be way over here instead of where it was, and I kind of want it to line up. There we go. Now at this point, we can preview it, and it will start off with the main slide, and then it will go into the slideshow. And I can again use the buttons to control it or go backwards. So that's how you make a slideshow in Muse that easily. Nothing else you have to do. Okay, so now we've added a slideshow, which was number 4. Let's talk about number 5. Let's say on the About Us page, we also want you to be able to download our brochure. Let's go ahead and grab the type tool. Let's go ahead and drag out a text frame and download our latest brochure here. The next thing people want to know how to do is, how do I link to a file that I want people to be able to grab and get? So I'll select the word here. I'll say add links. And at the very bottom of the add links, there's a new option called link to file. And when I say link to file, I can actually go out to my hard drive, find the PDF that I want to use, and link to it. And Muse will automatically upload that PDF when it comes time to upload or export the site. I don't have to do anything else. That's all I had to do was just link to it. It knows to take care of it from that point on. Now, I'll throw you a bone. This is one I get asked sometimes. Or listen to our latest track here. Let's say I want to link to an MP3 file. I can highlight that, link to file, go find my MP3, and link to it. And that will also get uploaded and be clickable and linkable right there in Muse. Now, of course, that's going to be dependent on the person clicking on it, that their browser can play an MP3 file, because we're not putting a player in here. We're just putting the actual link to the MP3 file. So they'll either download it or play it right in their browser. All right, let's go to number 6. I get this question all the time. Can Muse be used to create or edit or modify or style your blog? And the answer is no, no, and no, and no, at least not in this current version. Muse doesn't have a content management system built in, a CMS. That's what blogs really are. So it doesn't have a CMS built in, but that doesn't mean if you have an existing blog, you can't use it with Muse. So for example, let's say I want to put a link to my blog in the navigation, but I didn't build a blog with Muse. So I go back to the website. I go back to Ethermaster, because I'm going to have to do it in both places anyway. Actually, before I do that, I actually add the blog wherever I want it to be in the list. So let's add a page right here, and let's call it blog. You can call it whatever you want. Now, of course, if we don't do anything else, people are going to just click and go to this empty page. We don't want that. We want them to click and go to a page that's our actual blog. So to do that, we first need to turn this page off. We need it there for reference, but we don't want to put anything on it. We don't want it to actually be used. So we right-click on this page, we go to menu options, and we say include page, but without a hyperlink. So leave the page there, but don't ever go to it. Now let's go back to our menus, and in our menu, there's the blog, but we want to click on that blog, and we want to actually add a link that goes to our real blog, terrywhite.com. So now when people click on blog, it will actually go to my real blog and not that blank page. So we need to do the same thing for the other one, which now has this. and we click and we just say use recently Terry White. So now that will go to our actual blog. And if we go home and we preview this, we can even preview the page in a browser. Now, when I say preview in browser, it launches my default browser, which in this case is Chrome. And it shows my rollovers. It shows all my links. There's my Twitter. My Twitter actually works. Great. There's my Facebook. My Facebook actually works. Great. And our blog, if we click, and if I did things right, it takes me to terrywhite.com and not the blank page. So it all works based on what we did in Muse, including even a HTML5 animation that we brought over from Adobe Edge. All right, number 7. What if we want to add video? So let's say on our products or events page, we want to add a video. And by the way, maybe we want the video to have its own page. So we can say we're going to link off the events page, and we're going to have a videos page. Yes, you can link down as well. Your pages don't have to be all horizontally across or navigation. But in your navigation, you will need to then go change how your navigation works with more than just top-level pages. It works with all pages so that you get your actual video link. All right, so now let's go back to our new videos page. And you're saying, okay, where's the place video option? There isn't one. In this current version of Muse, Muse has no support for native video support, meaning I don't place a video with Muse. I don't bring it. I could bring in a Flash file, I guess, a Swift file that had a video in it, but that's about it. What you're really doing to add video is you're using the embed code from wherever your video is currently being hosted. I use YouTube, for example. I use YouTube all the time. This video is on YouTube. And therefore, if I want to place this video on my page, I go to my YouTube page, grab the embed code from that particular YouTube video just by clicking share, embed code, copy, and paste it in Muse. But where? So, for example, let's go to a text file that I have a YouTube video, embed code that I copied from YouTube. And now to actually get that video on this page, I go Object, Insert HTML. That will bring up a blank box. If you know how to code HTML, you can actually type right into it. If you're like me and you know how to code HTML but just don't want to, you can do paste. And that will paste your code from YouTube right in, click OK. It will take a second or two to render it, and there's your video. You can use your video and put your video wherever you want your video to be. Now, in this case, it really doesn't look that good on her, so we might want to change the background for this page, which we can do by going back here and changing our master to be that master. There we go. So now when we go to that page, we have a better looking videos page. All right, so that video is there. Again, we move it wherever we want, put whatever we want around it, whatever text we want around it, and we can preview that, for example, in the browser, and we can actually play the video. This way, I get all the benefits. I get to use videos that are being hosted by someone else, or in this case, YouTube, and I don't have to worry about bandwidth. I don't have to worry about browser compatibility. I don't have to worry about device compatibility because YouTube takes care of that in their player. I just put the code right on my page. All right, let's talk about number 8, adding e-commerce. I get that question all the time too. Can I put a shopping cart on my site? So let's say on the products page, we want to sell something. That might be a good idea. So let's move the slideshow over. And we're going to sell, and by the way, you'd probably put the word products on here in a nice font. So let's do that too. Let's put that up here. I'm going to say products. And we're going to use paragraph style sheet. Oops, but we probably will want that in a different color though, so we can actually see it. So we can override that style. There we go. All right, but there you go. You've got your text there. Now you want to actually add some more text for what you're going to actually be selling. So we want to sell a personal visit by yours truly, Terry White. And we don't really need this frame to be this big. Or we have a different product we want to sell. I just hold down the Option key and duplicate that. A personal phone call, 10-minute phone call by Terry White. Hey, I can dream, right? All right, so now we've got those two things that we want our customers to be able to buy, but I don't have any, shopping cart thing built into Muse. So what do? Well, you go grab the code from your shopping cart e-commerce hosting provider, just like I did for YouTube. So for example, I use PayPal for these kinds of things since I'm not a big company that uses something else. So I would go grab the PayPal code to add a button for my shopping cart, which I've done. So here's the personal visit code that PayPal gave me. And now I'll just go Object, Insert HTML, paste that code in, click OK, wait for a second, and it will render an Add to Cart button that I can now move around, put on my page, wherever I want it to be. And we got one more. Let's go grab it. Let's go grab the one for the phone call. Copy. And Object, Insert HTML, paste, OK, wait for it to render, move it in place, and I could even edit the code to customize the look of those buttons if I wanted to, but you get the idea. And by the way, how do you edit the existing code? Right click on it, edit HTML, and you would change this source of the graphic to a graphic you want to use as a button. But anyway, there it is. Now I've built an e-commerce page without having any e-commerce abilities in Muse. So if we preview this page in a browser, I can now say, hey, I want to buy a personal visit by Terry White. Let's see how much that costs. So I can say add to cart. And by the way, that's travel not included. It's $2,500 to add a personal visit by me. And I want to continue shopping because I also want that 10-minute phone call. So we'll click add cart or add to cart. And it's added to cart. We can check out with a credit card or check out with PayPal, and away we go. My e-commerce site built into Muse without having to have Muse support e-commerce natively. Okay, next, let's talk about the number 9. That is building a mobile version of your site. So if we go back to the main design view of our planning view of our site, we've built the desktop version, and the only thing we didn't do was add a contact us thing. But we built the desktop version, and now we can go in and add a tablet layout and or a phone layout. And when you add these layouts, it will optimize the page that the pages that you're adding for those devices. So when I say add a phone layout, I can say copy from the desktop, the site plan, and the page attributes. When I click OK, there they are. Now, in a mobile site, maybe I don't need a particular page. I can delete it, and it won't delete it from the desktop site. It will just delete it from the mobile site. I can say, you know what? I don't want it to be hierarchical like that. I want all my pages to be across, so I can just drag that page up. And you know what? I want the Contact Us page to be last. So I'm just changing the way this particular site works as opposed to my other sites. Now I would begin laying out the content. So I could go to the home page, for example. On the home page, I can say, you know what, use a browser fill, use an image, but this time we need an image that's more vertical. Use that one instead, and don't tile it. We want it to scale to fill, and we want it to do it from the center, and away we go. So now I'd begin designing that page and the content I want on that page, or those pages, I should say. So if we go back, we have the home page. We would now start just placing or copying and pasting the same content from our other layout. So I could place the edge animation if I want, and put that there. And I could also place the logo. Probably do that on the home page, or I'm sorry, on the master page. But there's our logo. Where's our logo? There's our logo. And put that there as well. Now, for a menu, the menu that we used on the desktop version was a horizontal menu, and we used a vertical one as well. But in this case, we definitely want a vertical one. So I can say add a vertical menu. And I can put the menu anywhere I want and let people be able to click around to get to it. Or I can build it. Here, let me delete it. I can build it in such a way that it slides up and down. I've done a video on this already, but just in a nutshell, it would be open this up, drag the header down, for example. We're going to use another type of widget called an accordion. Drag the accordion in, put it here, and we're going to get rid of some of the other panels we don't need because we only need one. Oops, I always do that. There we go. And now we've got the one panel with the one sample element in it we don't need, and we're just going to call this menu. Now that we have our menu, we're going to go ahead and actually add a menu into it. So let's drag the content area down, drag our vertical menu in. We would size it, scale it, style it, do all the things we'd want to do to it. Move it up or space that up a little bit. And because I put it in an accordion panel, that makes it dynamically slide. The last thing I need to do is say it can close all and close initially. And now when we go back to our design, or our planning stage, I should say, when we preview this page, we have a menu that will drop down and go away. So, and we want to move the logo up and have that go with it. So let's go back to that. Sorry about that. There we go. So now that will drop that down and expand it back up. So there you go. Those are some ways to add a mobile version of your site. And again, the ability to now have your mobile version be just what you need it to be. Only the content you want, only the pages you want. And you do the same thing for your tablet version. And I've got an example of this. If you head over to macgroup.org, macgroup.org, that entire site was built with Muse, complete with mobile versions for tablet and phone. All right, the last thing, number 10, that people want to know how to do is upload all this. Now that you're done, now that you've built all your sites and all your content, what do you want to do? Well, there's 3 ways to handle that. If you are, since you're a subscriber to Muse or Creative Cloud, you have free hosting or hosting that's included with your subscription. You have the ability to host one site if you're a Muse subscriber or up to 5 if you're a Creative Cloud subscriber. So that would be just going to File and hitting Publish. You'll log in with your Adobe ID. It will upload all the content to one of your included slots in Business Catalyst, and you're hosted. You're done. Away you go. If you already have your existing space somewhere else, like you host with another provider, then you just say upload via FTP. You go to your provider, get your FTP account information, and upload directly from Muse to that space, wherever it is in the World Wide Web. Last but not least, you can say export as HTML. That will take your entire site, all your versions, all your layouts, and put it in a folder that you can navigate locally, or you could upload yourself with another FTP client or another way of uploading, or hand it off to someone to do something else with. So that's the way Adobe Muse works. I hope I've given you enough to get started with in this How to Get Started with Adobe Muse, the 10 things beginners want to know how to do. Thanks for watching. My name's Terry White.